Welcome to People Like You. Taking your faith to college is not only challenging, but life-changing. As a student at UCLA, I have experienced this firsthand and was asked to host this episode. Today, we will be talking with college students and graduates from the Bay Area who have agreed to share their experiences. We hope that this discussion will encourage future students of higher education to embrace their faith as they embark on this next stage of life. Stay with us.
If you could be strong in that place of prayer, you could be strong. It doesn't matter what school you go to.
Following Christ in college is not always easy. Today, 4 Bay Area students have joined us to talk about this very issue and to tell their stories of faith on campus. It's great having you all here today. Can I have each of you introduce yourselves, please?
Well, my name's Taylor. I am 20 years old. I did 2 years at a junior college, so DVC, and then I'm transferring to Sacramento State as a junior. I am majoring in business, hopefully with a minor in deaf studies. Not too sure what the future has planned. Hopefully going to be in the fashion or cosmetics industry, though we'll see what happens.
My name's Andrew, and I'm 22 years old. Just finished UCLA with a BS in microbiology, immunology, and molecular genetics. Long name,
Yep.
but not that scary. That's probably the scariest part of the name. I am planning on going into medical school. I actually start in a week and a half back at UCLA, so we'll see what happens with that.
And I'm Alyssa. I'm a junior at Biola University in La Mirada. I'm studying journalism with an emphasis in photography. I love it. It's my passion. And currently I have a minor in business, so we'll see what God has planned to kind of combine the two, I guess. But yeah, and then after, I would love to go into wedding photography, which is actually starting up right now, or even get an internship with National Geographic, something like that. That would be absolutely fantastic. So.
That's awesome. I'm Brandon Smith, 22. I just graduated UC Berkeley with a degree in, what did I graduate with? It's been such a long time. My mind's on break.
Yeah.
I graduated with a degree in media studies.
Okay.
Right now I'm currently training to go play professional basketball overseas and be in ministry. So I'm looking forward to exciting future ahead.
Awesome. Great. So you all are successful college students. Do you think that your high school experience prepared you well for your experience in college? Getting some mixed expressions here.
Yeah, kind of, in a different way. College is definitely not like high school, and nothing short of that. So I think in high school you definitely learn about how to study and certain things like that. But when you go to college, no one's really there to hold your hand. Your teachers aren't taking attendance. They don't really care if you show up for your final. It is what it is. So I think high school kind of prepares you to know you need to study, you need to work hard, but the rest of it is definitely a brand new ball game.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's you develop a lot of good habits or bad habits in high school, but a lot of college is learning how to adapt, and I think the people who adapt the best are the ones who can adjust the best and are the most successful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what were some of the biggest adjustments going into college? I know you're all at different stages, but kind of think back to that first year, big campus. What were some of those strange things you had to get used to?
I think one of the first strange things I had to get used to was living in co-ed dorms, and not necessarily living under a Christian house.
Yeah.
I had the awesome opportunity to get blessed. But when you go to college, it's all of a sudden you got other roommates who are now having sex with their girlfriends, literally just the room next door, when you came from living in a holy household, So all of a sudden you have all these kids with just this newfound freedom, and they're just running with it, and you're kind of I really got to make my faith my own at this point. It's no longer mom and dad driving you to church every Sunday. Now you got to drive your own self and get plugged in and stuff. So it's all this stuff kind of literally becomes your own.
And how did you find kind of a church community like that?
Well, at Biola, it was really easy.
Yeah.
Everyone on our floor, when you're a freshman, they all kind of identify you, and you're do you want to come to church with me? Do you want to come?
Yeah.
I go to this church. This is why this church is the best. And they offer, they have something online where they offer rides, and so you can sign up for a ride and go to church. Or you can just ask your RA, like, oh, what church do you go to? Like, can I come with you? That kind of thing. So at Biola, it's really easy to get plugged in.
Yeah. What advice can you give to high school students who are right now looking at college?
I think one of the biggest things, if there was two things that I could tell a high school student, one would be develop a prayer life. I think that is so vital, so essential. One of my favorite preachers who now gone would be the Lord, his name's Leonard Ravenhill, and he said this awesome quote. He said, if you look back in history, you'll find this to be true, that the men who have changed history have been the ones who have developed a quiet time. And I think that's so essential. If you could be strong in that place of prayer, you could be strong. It doesn't matter what school you go to. You know, and I think also the second thing too was you got to find a community with other believers who are going to push you in your faith. You know, I was blessed. I had developed 3 best friends there at UC Berkeley, and we called ourselves the Holy Club. And we would pray together, we'd fast together, confess sin, all that kind of stuff. But our goal was that, hey, we want to push each other into the fullness, you know. And so I think that's essential. You can have a prayer life, and you can have friends who are going to push you. I think you'll be good.
And let's talk a little about prayer life, because I know for me, I feel like I'm surrounded by people all the time. There's no privacy, there's no moment to just kind of, you know, hide away and just find some time with the Lord. So how do you find that time?
I don't know. Something that I've started to do is just set aside like a time in my schedule. Be like, this is my 15-minute block where I'm going to pray or read my Bible, and there's nothing that can fill it. Like no homework, like no anything. Like you have to like. It's sad that you have to pencil it in, but sometimes in college, like that's like just what you have to do. So make it a movable time.
I think another thing too is just pray when you can throughout the day. You're walking to class, that's a good 5-minute chunk. You know, I think sometimes we're so fixed on, oh, I got to get this quantity, this amount, this set block. You know, sometimes that's not available. Sometimes you have 15 minutes, and sometimes I've had a 15-minute session that has been as good as a 2-hour. You know, presence of God shows up, I'm getting wrecked, I'm crying. Jesus, I love you.
Right, those are the good ones.
But I think too sometimes about the quality, you know, and he sees your schedule, he understands, you know, so it's not like he's beating you down like, hey, you didn't spend 3 hours with me in prayer today, you're not a real disciple. He's like, hey, I seen you walking to class trying to reach out to me. I love that, you know, and it warms my heart. And so I think you pray when you can, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's important not to get discouraged when you like miss a time, because I think that's very easy. Like, oh, I didn't read my Bible today, and then you just kind of get into a habit of not, you know. And I think it's very important to, I guess, develop that habit of getting back on your horse after you mess up, because I think that, at least with how sinful we are, it's very easy to get discouraged and almost want to call it quits. But thankfully there's grace, and we can get back on our horse, and he says his grace is sufficient. So to keep going at it, not in your own strength, but by grace, because that's the only thing that gets us through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And how important have you found those moments of prayer throughout the day, or, you know, set aside in quiet time? How important are those times to kind of helping you throughout your day?
It's crazy how much it affects you. You know, college is just a different ball game, and life gets a little bit more stressful, and you feel like, you know, you might only have class for 2 hours a week, but I guarantee you have like 15 hours of homework. So sometimes it's like when you feel like you're gonna shoot yourself, like that 5 minutes of just like calming down, you know, and being like, okay, God, like I'm a little overwhelmed. How much he calms you, and how much after you really can focus and like get what you need done. I've just found like it's even affected my grades. Like when I know I've taken those times, it's so much better.
It's really good.
Yeah, I found that when it feels like the wheels are coming off and life just gets hard and like circumstances get very difficult, that prayer is more so than just a lifeline. Like I found it to be the breath in my lungs and the just the only way I can get through the day, because there are just times and circumstances when I don't even know. I'm like, God, I'm not gonna be able to do it today. Like I can't not worry, I can't not stress, I can't not do what I want to do, and I have found that is the only way to get through it. His grace is very sufficient, and I think that's something that I've been resting in a lot and trusting that he listens.
Absolutely, yeah. More with Bay Area students when we return. Don't go away.
What kind of Christian do I really want to be? You know, do I want to be just kind of a generic American, kind of like, hey, I can kind of do whatever I want, but I'm in church on Sundays? Or am I going to be like Acts of the Bible type Christian, you know?
Welcome back. We are here with 4 Bay Area college students talking about faith on campus. So what have been some of the biggest challenges maintaining your faith while on campus?
I think it's being asked to like write things you don't really believe about or discuss things in class. You know, I went to a very, my JC was just very secular. So, you know, I'd be the only one in the classroom who like even believed there was a God. So to have to write a paper like proving there isn't, or having to have like discussions about it. But I've just seen God bless me in so many ways through that, where I've had professors who like love it, they live for stuff like that, and I've ended up becoming like their best friend at the end of the semester because we're able just to like sit and really talk. And if anything, it's like even solidified my own faith, because like when I see their arguments, I just don't even fathom how they don't believe like God's real, you know? So for anything, like that's been a struggle, yet seeing him just bring out so much strength in that too.
I think one of the biggest obstacles I've faced too, especially I think Christians on a secular campus, is just like now there's a ton of opportunities just to compromise your standards and your morals and your convictions. You know, because mommy and daddy aren't there telling you like, hey, you got to be home by this time, you can't do this. I don't want to see alcohol in your room and no smoking and all that kind of stuff. It's like now you have the opportunity to go access all of that. You know, there's a whole new world that you can just step into if you would like. And so the challenge is, okay, hey, I can either compromise and water down my Christianity, or I can take a stand and I can grow in purity and I can grow in righteousness in this kind of wicked atmosphere, you know. And so I think that's one of the obstacles that you have to face, as well as now too, you really have to make it your own. You know, in high school, there's a degree of that, but now it's like you are really setting in stone who you're going to be in the future. And so now it's like, all right, what kind of Christian do I really want to be? You know, do I want to be just kind of a generic American kind of like, hey, I can kind of do whatever I want, but I'm in church on Sundays? Or am I going to be like Acts of the Bible type Christian, you know? And so I think those are kind of some of the obstacles that I've faced, I know, going at UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
Being in the hard sciences at UCLA, I feel like I'm experiencing a whole different kind of playing field than most, because being in the hard sciences, people value knowledge greatly and they value science very greatly, and being able to trying to figure out how to interact with people who don't believe there's a God because they believe in the Big Bang and they believe in evolution and all these different things. It's been a very interesting challenge in how to interact with them, I guess, and how to tell them about Christ and how to tell them about something that they don't believe in, you know. And I found that the most effective way is to be a person who pursues Christ with his whole heart and whose life reflects that, and who lives in a way that's different and whose priorities are different than the world, you know. As I'm going into medicine, people want to go into medicine for money, for status, for whatever it is, and I'm like, why do you want to go to medicine? I'm like, I want to do it because I want to go on mission, you know. I want to tell people about Christ, and I want to train doctors up overseas and tell them about Jesus. And they're like, what the heck? And just to hear people's responses and to see how they respect a conviction that strong, and see someone who's pursuing Christ and pursuing excellence in medicine as well, I think it's something that's very unique, especially in that field.
And then bio is just like completely different. It's so easy to get comfortable in your surroundings and just be like, oh, well, I have chapel Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we offer like different chapels Tuesday, Thursdays, and then Wednesday nights. And so there's always opportunity. And so it's so easy for you to be like, oh, I can go to church like later, or I can do that later. Like there's so many things. Like there are so many times where we have the opportunity to go to church or go to chapel, or because you're like living in it. It's completely saturating your life. And it's really easy to push it off and be like, I can do that later. But I think it gives you the opportunity to like own it more and kind of say, no, like I still need to go to church. Like even if it's like just me, or like you figure out how to get there on your own. But if anything, it's like solidified more how important it is to make it like your own personal, like, I want to go to church because I want to learn about God and like learn more and have him grow me and become a better Christ follower. So it's really neat.
And can any of you remember kind of a pivotal moment when you realized, I have to make my faith my own? I think that's a phrase I've heard very often, which I completely understand. It's a little difficult to kind of define what that feels like.
Yeah, I think one pivotal moment for me, I was in the locker room one day. This was during summer workouts for school, and so hey, I'm new, I'm getting adjusted, first time living away from home, obviously, and a kid had just lost his virginity that summer, and so guys ask him in the room, they're like, hey, what'd you do this summer? He's like, hey, I lost my virginity. And they just like celebrated for him. You know, it was going crazy. It was like, oh, he became a man, he became a man. And so the question comes on me, well, Brandon, are you a virgin? You know, and it was in that moment I was just realizing this is gonna be a defining moment for me. You know, like right now I could lie to try and impress them, or I could stand for what I believe in. So I said, yeah, I'm a virgin, you know, I'm proud of it. I'm saving myself for marriage. This is something that's very precious to me. You know, and I got a couple chuckles, but surprisingly I got a lot of respect. Because they said, you know, here's a man who's standing for what he believes in. And I knew in that moment it was going to set forward in motion that I was going to be a man who was going to stay true to my convictions. I chose to fear God, you know, and so it was a big moment for me.
I'm on a Sac State's dance team. So the first time we kind of got together, you know, everyone was talking about, and they're like, oh, like, well, you're a transfer. After we're going to go out for drinks. And my first remark was like, oh, well, I'm 20, because that's the first thing that came to mind, you know. And they're like, oh, no worries, like, we know the guy at the door. Like, you'll be fine. And then it clicked. I was like, okay, well, yes, I'm 20, but also, like, no, like, that's not really my scene. Like, I don't really go out, like, that's not how I want to live. And then once I said that, it did. I was like you. They were like, oh, well, maybe we can go to dinner first, and then we'll go out. So it was kind of cool, like, something I was a little bit nervous coming into to, like, make that friends, and, you know, that's what most people do when they're 21.
Yeah.
And they ended up taking it so great, and I was like, okay, like, you can do this.
Yeah, instead of choosing to fit in, that you take a stand. You know, I think in the long run, that's what people respect. They want to see somebody who's going to stay true. They're tired of seeing people who live just like them and do what they do. You know, they want to see somebody who's original, authentic, and we all had that chance to be that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it seems like living all out for Christ is so much more missional than just living quietly for Christ. You know, I mean, it seems like you can't really do it halfway. Yeah. Well, we will be talking a little bit more after the break. We have one more segment, so don't go away.
In the last year, I've seen God do things that are mind-boggling and have pulled miraculous feats of like getting me into school next year. That's something ridiculous. And seeing Him be faithful and seeing Him be present even when I feel alone.
We're back. So we've talked a lot about kind of adjusting to college from that high school mentality. So now that you're looking back on that past, how are you living your faith now compared to when you first started in college? What's that difference like?
I think one huge thing is my faith's a lot stronger. You know, I think sometimes we see like an attack of the enemy or resistance as something that we don't want, but in the end, like that's what actually gets you stronger. You know, I don't pay a monthly membership to 24-Hour Fitness to go in there and just goof around. What I'm actually paying for is resistance, because I know that resistance will make my muscles look bigger, nicer, but ultimately get more stronger. So it's awesome to see where I came in 4 years ago as opposed to now, you know, and just the truths that you begin to really believe. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I went into college that I knew about the Bible, you know, and I knew a simple verse, but all of a sudden when you have to go through a real trial or adversity, and that's the only thing that you could hold on to, it's all of a sudden it goes from here to something you live out, and it's in here. So it's cool to see simple truths now become something that I actually believe in.
4 years ago, I had become, right before I went to college, I became a Christian, maybe about 4 weeks before. And coming into college, I was like, am I going to be a Christian in a month, you know? And interesting enough, like you hear all the statistics of people like falling away from their faith coming into college. There's actually similar statistics of people falling out of their faith leaving college. And that's something that was really interesting to see, that after I graduated college, like, am I still going to be a solid Christian? You know, am I going to pursue Christ even though community might not be around me, even though things look different? And in the last year, I've seen God do things that are mind-boggling and have pulled miraculous feats of like getting me into school next year. That's something ridiculous. And seeing Him be faithful and seeing Him be present even when I feel alone, and to be in positions where I don't really have very many people around me who can relate to me because these circumstances I'm in are unique, and to still see that God's giving me grace to pursue Him shows me that I think in the future that I'll still be able to pursue Him by His grace. And again, it's I have to rely on His grace every day because there's no other way.
Yeah. And Taylor, speaking about community, you stayed in your home area to go to school, and a lot of other people kind of went off to school. So what was that like?
The transition at first was definitely difficult. I felt very alone, especially because I lived like an hour away from my high school. So I didn't really have a lot of friends like in my local area. So then going to school, like it definitely became one of those like, okay, God, like I kind of feel like I don't have any friends, like you're becoming my friend, and it really did kind of start out like as that joke in my head. Like I used to, like, this sounds so weird, but like I would like tease God, like, okay, like I'm gonna talk to you now because there's no one else around. But if anything, it's like made situations that come with like adversity so much more like real and easy. Like I feel like He now shows me like, okay, like I know I'm testing you, but I'm right here to like help you through. So I feel like my faith has come a little bit more real instead of that like, oh, I'm talking to a wall that I hear some kids talk about when they're like talking about prayer when they're little. Now I feel like, oh, I'm no longer talking to a wall, like I'm talking to my friend and I'm talking to someone who loves me. And that's just been so different now.
How do you know that the Lord is with you?
Oh my God.
I know. Okay, and it's difficult because I think it's hard to describe, especially if it's something that you haven't necessarily experienced. But, if you could try to kind of describe, how you know, or...
I think it's through certain experiences. Yeah. Like I feel like I had orientation a few days ago for school and I was freaking out to say the least. And I remember getting there and there's like hundreds of kids and they're putting us in these groups of 10, which I was just like, oh no. And I just remember praying to God like, okay, like if you're here with me, let me know. Yeah. So in my group of 10 people, my best friend was put with me. Another girl in my group is a Christian. She's getting involved in Campus Crusades, and my group leader is the leader for Campus Crusades for Christ on SEC. So it's in moments like that you just like feel God. I was like, okay, this is nothing short of you. Thank you. So I think it's learning to like see that more.
Definitely. I know for me, it was before spring break of my sophomore year, and I had about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, of just like some hard things that I knew were going to be coming up. And I remember running on the track, and I like never run. I am not a runner. And so when I go for a run, people are like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "What's happening?" I'm like, "No, it's good. I just need to like pray for a little bit." And so I just like I'll walk, run, or whatever I just feel like doing, and just be like, "God, I need you like this week and these next 2 weeks. Like I always need you, but Lord, please provide me with like so much peace with what I'm going to be facing." And all the things that came up, like normally I would have gone into like a overthinking, like nervous wreck about, and I was just like, okay, that's fine. Like God, you're right here and it's gonna be okay. And I just felt this immense peace that normally I would have like spiraled into an overthinking situation.
Yeah. I think another way too, I think she mentioned it, that peace, but it's tangible presence. Yeah. No, I think many times that we don't have our mind or kind of our thoughts aims towards Him, and so we're kind of going about being busy with everything else. But if you stop and just take a deep breath and just begin to just set your gaze upon Him, like He comes in that moment, and you feel His presence. And again, those feelings aren't always there, so sometimes it's known by hearing His voice. Yeah. That still small voice within. And so that's another way or so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And how does that peace help you? We're about to end. We're running out of time. But how does that peace help you looking forward?
I think that everything's going to turn out good.
Yeah.
As cliche, as simple as that is, like when He's in it, it's going to be good, because He's a good leader of your life, and you trust Him, and He's never failed me, and I mean, He doesn't change, so He won't. So when His peace is there, I know that, hey, if you're in it, this is a good spot to be in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm thankful that the Bible says that He works out all things for our good.
Jeez,
right? Right. If it was left to our own devices,
that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I've just learned a lot just hearing from all of you, so thank you. Being a Christian on campus may not be easy, but with God, all things are possible. As it says in Matthew 5:14, you are the light of the world. If you are a college student who needs prayer, or you know someone who does, please call our CareForce line at 888-235-9907 or visit KTLN.TV. We would love to pray with you. Remember that KTLN is a donor-supported ministry. Programs like this one are made possible through your support. Join us again next week.